Look, I had served in the Galactic Enforcement Division for 12 cycles. 12 cycles of handling civil unrest on mining colonies, breaking up smuggling rings on border stations, and just once I had even survived a firefight with rogue mercenaries near the Andromeda sector. So when my commanding officer told me I was being reassigned to Earth, to a human educational facility of all places, I laughed. Actually laughed right in his face. Big mistake. Huge. But at the time, standing there in his office with my 3 commendations pinned to my chest, I thought I knew better. Humans were soft, right? Pink, squishy. No natural armor. No venom sacs. No combat-ready appendages. Their planet was a backwater that had only joined the galactic community 15 cycles ago. They were practically infants on the cosmic stage. My assignment was simple. Laughably simple. Provide security at Maplewood Elementary School in a place called Portland, Oregon. Make sure the small humans, the juveniles they called kids, stayed safe during their learning hours. Monitor the perimeter. File reports. Collect my credits. Easy duty for a decorated officer like myself. The facility itself was, well, cute. All bright colors and rounded edges. Nothing like the angular military structures I was used to. The humans had painted pictures on the walls. Little handprints in every color you could name. There were soft grass areas outside where the juveniles would run and scream for no apparent reason. The whole place smelled like cleaning solution and something sweet they called crayons. I reported for my first shift wearing my full tactical gear, my plasma restraint baton attached to my belt, my communication device properly synced, professional, ready, completely, utterly stupidly unprepared for what was about to happen. Human children, as I would shortly learn, were not the problem. Human mothers, however, that was a different story entirely. It was 14 minutes into my shift when everything went sideways. The small humans had been released into their outdoor containment area, what they called recess, and I was conducting a standard perimeter check. Most of the juveniles were engaged in apparently normal activities, running in circles, throwing balls at each other, screaming at frequencies that honestly made my sensory organs hurt. Standard chaos, according to my briefing files. Then I spotted him. A tiny male juvenile, couldn't have been more than 6 cycles old, with brown hair sticking up in odd directions and some kind of bright yellow shirt with a cartoon creature on it. The child, Tommy according to his identification badge, was wandering away from the designated safe zone, heading straight toward the maintenance sector where the climate control units were housed. Protocol was clear. Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the safety manual stated that no juvenile was permitted in restricted areas without adult supervision. Hazardous equipment, potential for injury, liability concerns, all that bureaucratic nonsense. I moved quickly, intercepting the child before he could reach the doorway. I placed my hand on his shoulder, firm but not aggressive, exactly as I had been trained. Standard restraint procedure for non-hostile subjects. The juvenile looked up at me with those weird little eyes humans have, all wide and watery. Then he started crying. Not just crying, wailing. This high-pitched sound that seemed to pierce directly into my skull. His face turned red, actually red, and liquid started pouring from his eyes. Was he injured? Had I somehow damaged him? My grip had been well within acceptable parameters for human juvenile bone density. I am Security Officer Vaxar, I said, trying to maintain my professional tone. You are in violation of safety protocols. You must return to the designated area immediately. The crying got louder, substantially louder. Then I noticed the other humans. The adult supervisors, the ones they called teachers, had stopped what they were doing. They were staring at me. Not with gratitude for preventing a safety violation, mind you. No, they were staring with these expressions I could not quite identify. Their faces had gone tight. Their body language had shifted to something my combat training recognized as pre-aggressive posturing. One of them, a female with dark hair pulled back severely, started walking toward me. Fast. I want my mommy, the small human wailed, still firmly in my grip. Sir, the female teacher called out, her voice sharp. Sir, you need to let go of that child right now. Let go? I had not completed the safety escort procedure yet. Protocol required me to return the juvenile to the proper zone and file an incident report. Why was she interfering with standard security operations? This juvenile was attempting to access a restricted area. I explained calmly. I am following proper containment procedures. The woman's eyes went even wider. Her hands came up in what my database suggested was either a calming gesture or a preparation to strike. I honestly could not tell which. That is when I heard the sound that would haunt my nightmares for cycles to come. Tires screeching in the parking area, a vehicle door slamming with enough force to register on my audio sensors, and then footsteps. Running footsteps. Coming fast. She came around the corner of the building like some kind of predator I had only read about in xenobiology reports. Female, approximately 30 cycles old, dark hair whipping behind her as she ran, wearing what my database identified as business casual attire and footwear completely unsuitable for combat. Heels, they called them, ridiculous things that made a sharp clicking sound on the pavement. But none of that mattered the second her eyes locked onto her offspring. "Tommy," she shouted, and the small human somehow cried even harder, reaching his little arms toward her. "Mommy, mommy, mommy," he sobbed. The female, Rebecca Martinez, according to the identification protocols I pulled up in 0.4 seconds, stopped approximately 3 meters away. Her chest was heaving from the run, her face flushed that odd pink color humans turned when experiencing elevated cardiovascular activity, but it was her eyes that made my combat training suddenly wake up and pay attention. Those eyes were not afraid. Not even close. "Get your hands off my son," she said, and her voice had dropped to this low, dangerous register that made the hair on my neck ridges stand straight up. "Right now." "Ma'am," I replied, keeping my tone professional and measured. "Your offspring was attempting to access a restricted zone. I am conducting a standard safety intervention per protocol section 7 paragraph 3. Once I have escorted him back to the designated area and completed the incident report, he will be released to proper supervision," I said. She took a step closer, her hands curling into fists at her sides. "Get your hands off my son." "Ma'am, you need to calm down. I am a certified galactic enforcement officer with full authority granted by your planetary government. I am following established procedures. Your emotional response is not relevant to this safety violation." "Oh, I will show you an emotional response," she said, and I swear to the ancients her voice got even quieter, even more deadly. "You have exactly 3 seconds to let go of my child before I make you regret every single decision that brought you to this planet." I almost laughed. Almost. This female was barely up to my chest plate, had no visible weapons, no armor, no backup. She was making threats against a trained security officer over a simple protocol enforcement. The absurdity of it would have been funny if she had not looked so completely, utterly serious. "Ma'am, I must insist that you step back and allow me to complete my duties. Interference with security operations is a violation of Code 17-9 and can result in detention." 3, she said. "Excuse me?" 2, "Ma'am, this is highly inappropriate behavior. I am warning you that physical aggression toward enforcement personnel will result in immediate restraint and possible criminal charges." 1. Her hand went to her pocket. And that, my friends, is when my entire understanding of human threat assessment went completely out the airlock. She pulled out her keys. I know. It sounds ridiculous. Keys. Small metal objects used to operate their primitive vehicle locking mechanisms. I had seen them in my briefing materials right alongside information about their coffee addiction and their strange obsession with something called Wi-Fi. But this female, this Rebecca Martinez, she did not hold those keys like someone who wanted to go home. Oh no. She threaded them between her fingers, the pointed ends sticking out from her knuckles like makeshift claws, the jagged edges catching the sunlight. She held them like a weapon, like she actually knew how to use them as a weapon. "Last chance," she said, and started walking toward me. My training kicked in. Sort of. I mean, I had been trained to handle armed assailants, sure. Plasma rifles, shock batons, monofilament blades, even the occasional projectile weapon. But keys. There was no protocol for key. My threat assessment software literally could not categorize what I was looking at. "Ma'am," I attempted one more time, tightening my grip on the still crying juvenile. "I am authorized to use reasonable force if you attempt to assault me." She smiled. Actually smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. Then she was on me. I do not mean she attacked cautiously, or telegraphed her movements, or gave me any of the warning signs my combat instructors had drilled into me. She just launched herself forward with zero hesitation and drove those keys straight toward my face. I jerked my head back, purely on instinct, and felt the jagged metal scrape across my cheek plate. It actually hurt. Those ridiculous little pieces of metal actually cut through my dermal layer. "Release him," she snarled, and swung again, this time aiming for my hand that was holding her offspring. I let go. Of course I let go. What else was I supposed to do? The small human scrambled away, still crying but now running toward the teachers who had frozen in absolute shock. And suddenly, I was facing this human female alone, and she was not stopping. Not even a little bit. She came at me with those keys like a trained fighter. Jab/jab. I blocked with my forearm and felt the keys rake across my uniform, tearing the fabric. I tried to grab her wrist. Standard disarmament technique. But she twisted away with flexibility that should not have been possible and drove her knee straight into my midsection. The air whooshed out of my lungs. Actual air. From my actual lungs. "You do not touch my child," she said, punctuating each word with another strike. "Do not touch my child." I staggered backward, trying to create distance, trying to access my restraint baton, trying to remember literally any of my training that applied to being attacked by an unarmed, well, technically armed with keys, human female, who moved like she had been raised by combat trainers. "Officer down," I gasped into my communicator. "Officer down, require immediate backup." And then I heard it. More footsteps. More voices. I risked a glance to the side and felt my stomach drop straight through the ground. Other humans were arriving. Other parents. They had heard the commotion, seen what was happening, and they were converging on the playground like some kind of pack predator response. Mothers, fathers, even a couple of grandparents from the looks of it. They were not running away from the conflict. They were running toward it, toward me. And every single one of them looked exactly as angry as Rebecca Martinez. One male, large and bearded, cracked his knuckles in a way that needed no translation. A female with gray hair pulled a phone from her purse, holding it like she was ready to either call for help or use it as a projectile weapon, possibly both. "Are you okay, sweetie?" one of them called to Tommy, who was now safely behind the teacher wall. "That alien grabbed him," another voice shouted. "Just grabbed him right out of the play area. Where is security? Where is the principal? Someone call the police." "I am security," I tried to say, but my voice came out wrong, shaky and weak in a way that would have gotten me demoted back in the enforcement division. Rebecca Martinez stood between me and any possible escape route, those keys still gripped in her hand, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on me like I was the only target in her universe. "So let me get this straight," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent playground. "You grabbed my 6-year-old son, made him cry, and now you want to tell me about protocols." The circle of humans tightened around us, and somewhere in the distance I heard sirens approaching. This was not going according to plan. The transport arrived with the subtle grace of a meteor strike. 3 of my fellow security officers materialized from the vehicle, all wearing full tactical gear, all looking absolutely ready to handle what they assumed was a serious threat situation. Vorn, my team leader, had his plasma restraint baton already activated, the blue energy crackling along its length. The other 2, Jexrai and a rookie named Plixon, fanned out in standard containment formation. Finally, I thought, relief flooding through me. Professionals, back up, someone to explain to these humans that they could not just attack enforcement personnel with car keys. Vorn took one look at the situation, at me backing away from a single human female, at the crowd of parents gathering, at the small crying juvenile being comforted by teachers, and made the worst possible decision. He activated the crowd dispersal protocols. "Stand down," he barked, his translator projecting his voice across the playground at maximum volume. "You are interfering with official galactic enforcement operations. Disperse immediately or face detention." The humans did not disperse, obviously, because nothing about this day was going to be simple. Instead, more of them arrived. A male in a construction uniform pulled into the parking area and jumped out of his truck, not even bothering to close the door. 2 females jogging past on the sidewalk stopped, saw the armed aliens facing down the crowd of parents, and immediately changed course to join them. Word was spreading somehow faster than should have been possible. These humans had some kind of communication network that my briefing had completely failed to mention. The crowd swelled. 20 humans. 30. Some of them were holding phones, pointing them at us, recording everything. Others were shouting questions, demands, threats. "What is happening here? Why are there weapons out near children? Someone call the superintendent. Call the mayor. Call the Ma'am," Vorn said, directing his attention to Rebecca Martinez, who had not moved from her position in front of me. "You need to step away from the officer and calm down." She laughed. Actually laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Calm down. Your officer grabbed my son, my 6-year-old son, without permission, without cause. Made him cry. Scared him. And now you show up with weapons and tell me to calm down. He was violating safety protocols, Vorn tried to explain, his tone getting harder, more authoritative. Your offspring was approaching a restricted area. He is 6 years old. The words came out like weapons themselves, sharp and precise. He is a child, a baby, and she gestured at me with those still-ready keys. Your officer put his hands on him without talking to a teacher, without calling me, without using literally any common sense. The human crowd made sounds of agreement. Aggressive sounds, the kind of sounds that made my threat assessment software start flashing warning colors. Jexer stepped forward, trying to establish a better position, and that was the match that lit the fire. Do not come any closer to these children, a male human shouted, and suddenly the entire crowd moved. They did not attack, not exactly, but they shifted as one unit, forming a wall between us and the school building, between us and the juveniles, a living barrier made of human parents who apparently had decided that 4 armed galactic enforcement officers were less scary than the possibility of their offspring being in danger. Rebecca Martinez stood at the center of that wall, those ridiculous keys still gripped in her hand, her eyes never leaving mine. This is your final warning, Vorn said, raising his baton higher. Disperse now or we will be forced to take action. Touch any of us. An elderly female called from the crowd, her voice surprisingly strong. Touch any of these children. I dare you. We have 50 witnesses and 20 cameras recording everything. You will be famous. Very, very famous. Ma'am, that is a threat against enforcement personnel, and Vorn started. It is a promise, Rebecca Martinez interrupted. You want to escalate this? Go ahead, but I guarantee you, every single parent here will go through you to protect these kids. Every single one. The crowd made more of those agreement sounds, louder this time. Hands gripped phone devices tighter, bodies pressed closer together, creating an impenetrable wall. And somewhere behind that wall I could still hear Tommy crying, calling for his mother, scared and confused and probably traumatized by the alien security officer who had just been following protocols. Vorn looked at me. I looked at Jexera. Jexera looked at Plixon. We were 4 trained galactic enforcement officers with military-grade equipment and legal authority granted by 3 separate interplanetary treaties, and we were completely, utterly outmatched by a parking lot full of angry human parents armed with nothing but car keys and righteous fury. The standoff held. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The only sound was the continued wailing of sirens getting closer, and then, cutting through the tension like a plasma blade through hull plating, a new voice called out, "What in the name of everything holy is going on at my school?" Douglas Ramirez was not a large human by their species standards. Average height, maybe slightly above. Graying hair, glasses that kept sliding down his nose. Wearing a tie that had tiny books printed on it. He looked about as threatening as a dust mite. But when he walked into that parking lot, every single human stopped shouting. Just stopped. Like someone had hit a mute button. He surveyed the scene with the kind of tired expression that suggested this was not his first crisis, probably not even his worst crisis, but definitely one he had not planned to deal with before lunch. His eyes moved from the armed security team, to the crowd of parents, to Rebecca Martinez still holding her keys like a gladiator, and finally to little Tommy sobbing behind the teacher wall. He pinched the bridge of his nose. He sighed, long and deep. "Okay," he said quietly. "Everybody take exactly 3 steps backward. Parents, security, everyone, 3 steps, right now." And they did. The humans did anyway. We security officers looked at each other confused. This male had no weapons, no armor, no apparent authority over us. But Vorn, perhaps sensing that things could not possibly get worse by cooperating, nodded. We stepped back. "Good," Douglas said. "Now, someone explain to me in simple words why there are plasma weapons out at an elementary school." Vorn straightened. The juvenile violated safety protocols. My officer intervened. The female became violent. We responded to an officer in distress call, standard procedure. Douglas turned to Rebecca. "Beck." "He grabbed Tommy," she said, her voice shaking now, the adrenaline clearly starting to wear off. "Just grabbed him. Tommy was probably just chasing a butterfly or looking at a bug. You know how he is. And this," she pointed at me with her keys, "this officer grabbed him hard enough to make him cry and would not let go even when Tommy asked for me." Douglas closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and looked directly at me. "Did you identify yourself to the child before making physical contact?" I paused. Protocol required verbal identification, but the juvenile had been moving toward a hazard and— Did you ask him where he was going? He was entering a restricted. I tried again. Did you call for a teacher? Did you use your communicator to contact anyone who actually works with human children and might know how to redirect a 6-year-old without traumatizing him? The silence was answer enough. Douglas turned to Vorn. Your officer grabbed a small child without warning, without introduction, without any attempt at de-escalation. A child. Do you understand what that means to a human parent? The juvenile was violating safety codes, Vorn said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. He is 6, Douglas said, his voice getting harder. 6 years old. His brain is not even fully developed. He does not understand restricted zones. He does not understand alien security protocols. He probably saw something shiny and wandered over. That is what 6-year-olds do. They wander, they explore, they make mistakes. And we, the adults, guide them back. Gently. We do not grab them. We do not restrain them. We definitely do not make them cry and then refuse to release them to their mother. We were following protocol, I said, finally finding my voice. I was doing my job, keeping the juveniles safe, by scaring one of them so badly that his mother had to defend him with car keys. Douglas shot back. That is your definition of safety? Human parents, Jexer said slowly, as if something was dawning on her. They are protective of their offspring. Protective, Douglas said, then actually laughed. But there was no humor in it. Protective does not even begin to cover it. You put your hands on someone's child? You made that child cry? You can have all the protocols in the galaxy, all the legal authority in the universe, and it will not matter. A human parent will go through you, over you, around you. Laws, consequences, personal safety, none of that matters when their baby is scared and crying. The crowd of parents murmured agreement, but quieter now, like they were letting Douglas speak for them. He turned back to Vorn. Do you have children, offspring? Vorn hesitated. 2. Back on my homeworld. Then answer me this, Douglas said softly. If someone grabbed one of your children hard enough to make them cry and then would not let go when your child called for you, what would you do? Vorn was quiet for a long moment. Then his baton deactivated. The blue energy died away. I would remove the threat, he admitted. Exactly, Douglas said. So maybe, just maybe, your protocols need to account for the fact that humans are hardwired, biologically programmed, to protect their young at any cost, and maybe, just maybe, grabbing a crying child and refusing to release him to his mother is the single worst possible thing you could do if you wanted this situation to end peacefully. I looked at Rebecca Martinez, at her keys, at the scratches on my faceplate, at the crowd of parents who had been ready to fight 4 armed officers, and I finally understood. I had not been following safety protocols. I had been triggering every threat response in the human parental programming. I had turned myself into the danger. The medical technician, a Kularian named Neft, with entirely too much sympathy in his 6 eyes, dabbed something cold and stinging on the scratches Rebecca Martinez's keys had left across my face. Hold still, he said, not unkindly. These lacerations are superficial, but they will scar if not treated properly. I barely felt them. My pride hurt substantially more than my face. The human police had arrived shortly after Douglas's intervention, taken statements from approximately 40 witnesses, and then left without arresting anyone. Apparently mutual combat, they called it, though Rebecca had done all the combating while I had mostly done the bleeding. Douglas had negotiated a compromise. Rebecca was banned from bringing her keys into the school building for the remainder of the academic cycle. Not banned from the school, mind you. Just her keys. New policy. Effective immediately. They were making her carry a keyless entry fob like some kind of reformed criminal. She had agreed while Tommy clung to her leg, his tear-stained face pressed into her skirt. I am writing my report now, I told Neff, typing slowly on my datapad with one hand while he worked on my face. Incident Report 7. 7 Alpha 3. Officer injury sustained during routine security operation. Routine, Neff repeated, and I swear he was laughing at me.
Yes.
Very routine. How many officers can say they were taken down by a human female with vehicle access devices? The door to the medical bay opened and Jexera walked in holding her own datapad, a strange expression on her face. You should see the security network channels, she said. Everyone is talking about she paused. Your encounter. Apparently this is not uncommon. What is not uncommon? Human parents becoming violent when their offspring are threatened. She scrolled through her pad. Officer Kelvin on Earth Station 12 tried to scan a human juvenile for contraband last cycle. The mother broke his scanning device with her hands, just grabbed it and snapped it in half. Officer Trovix attempted to remove a crying infant from a public transport when the noise exceeded acceptable decibel levels. The father, and I am quoting here, threw him off the transport, physically picked him up and threw him. I stared at her. These incidents are documented extensively. There is an entire subsection in the security database now. Human parental aggression response. It is flagged as a critical warning. How did you miss it in your briefing? I stopped, thought back to my orientation, to the files I had skimmed, certain they contained nothing relevant to a simple school security assignment. You did not read the cultural appendices, Jexer said. It was not a question. Vorn appeared behind her looking tired. He had spent the last 2 hours on communication channels with our superiors explaining how 4 trained enforcement officers had been held at bay by unarmed civilians. I have been informed, he said slowly, that humans are being reclassified in the threat database. To what level? I asked. Level 4 when unarmed. Level 8 when protecting offspring. Level 10 if you make the offspring cry. Level 10 was reserved for actively hostile military combatants. That seems excessive, Neft said. Does it? Foreign asked. Officer Kelvin needed reconstructive surgery on 3 digits. Officer Trevix filed for trauma counseling. And you? He looked at me. You are lucky she only had keys. According to the database, human parents have been documented using shoes, phones, bags, hot beverages, and in one memorable case, a frozen chicken as improvised weapons when they perceive threats to their young. A frozen chicken, I repeated. It was apparently quite effective. I looked down at my report. At the bland, procedural language that did not come close to capturing what had actually happened. How did I explain this to my superiors? How did I put into an official document that I, a decorated officer with 12 cycles of experience, had been utterly defeated by a female protecting her offspring with car keys? The truth, Jexer said, reading my expression. Tell them the truth, that humans are more dangerous than our classification suggested, that their parental instincts override their survival instincts, that protocols designed for other species do not account for their biological programming. I started typing. Incident involved human maternal protective response previously underestimated in threat assessment models. Recommend immediate protocol revision for all facilities involving human juveniles. Human parents should be considered primary security consideration, superseding standard procedural compliance. Vorn read over my shoulder. Add that physical contact with human offspring should require explicit parental consent except in immediate life-threatening emergency. I added it. And that keys, Neft added helpfully, are weapons. I glared at him. He smiled with too many teeth. But I added that too. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of a classroom full of new security recruits being assigned to Earth postings. Me, teaching. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. Lesson 1, I said, touching the still healing scars on my face. Human threat assessments are wrong. Completely, catastrophically wrong. I pulled up the image on the display screen. Rebecca Martinez, frozen in that moment with her keys gripped between her fingers, her face set in absolute determination, her body positioned between me and her child, like a living shield. This is a human female, 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighing approximately 130 pounds with no combat training, no weapons, no armor. According to our initial database, she should have registered as a level 2 threat. Minimal danger, easily managed. I paused. Let the silence build. She is level 10. Minimum. And that is only if you are lucky enough that her offspring is not crying. The recruits shifted uncomfortably. One raised a hand. Sir, what are the new protocols? I pulled up the revised guidelines, 47 pages of them, all written in the blood, metaphorically speaking, of officers who had learned these lessons the hard way. Do not touch human children without explicit permission. Do not raise your voice around human children. Do not make human children cry unless you are comfortable becoming the primary target of every parent within audio range. And if you absolutely must intervene in a situation involving a human juvenile, get a human teacher or administrator first. Let them handle it. Your armor will not protect you. Your training will not save you. Your legal authority means nothing to a parent who thinks their baby is in danger. What about protocols? Another recruit asked. What about safety violations? I smiled. It hurt my face. Common sense supersedes protocol when dealing with humans. Use your words before your hands. Explain before you act. And remember that to a human parent, their 6-year-old child is more important than your career, your safety, or your life. Plan accordingly. The recruits took notes. Lots of notes. After the briefing, I returned to my office and checked the parent communication network that Douglas had finally explained to me. Some kind of application on their phones where they shared information faster than our encrypted channels. There was a new post from the Maplewood Elementary parent group. A photo of Rebecca Martinez, standing in the school parking lot, holding a coffee cup instead of keys. The caption read, "Legend. Mama Bear. Do not mess with her kids." It had 473 approving responses in 2 hours. I had also received a message from her. Just 2 words. "We good." I stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "We are good. I am sorry." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "You learned. That is what matters. Tommy says hi." I saved that message. Sent my final report to command with a new threat assessment recommendation. Humans, particularly human parents, should be reclassified as a protected species, not because they need protection, but because anyone threatening their offspring certainly does. My commanding officer approved the report, added his own note at the bottom. "Should have read the appendices, Vaxer." Yeah, I really should have. I looked at my assignment board. Maplewood Elementary School, Portland, Oregon. Simple duty for a decorated officer, they had said. Easy credits, they had promised. I touched the scars on my face again. Smiled despite myself. Humans, pink, squishy, no natural armor, no venom sacs, no combat-ready appendages. But mess with their kids, you get the keys. And trust me, that is more than enough.